In this video lesson, we continue to investigate the new industrial age and look at the role of labor unions. Many workers during this time period had very bad working conditions. They were working 7-day work weeks, 12-hour days, they had no vacation or sick days, and this was very common for men in the steel mills. Women faced similar conditions, but not as bad. In 1882, an average of 675 laborers were killed in accidents each week. Wages were so low that every family member, including children, pictured here in this picture, had to work. 25% of boys and 10% of girls, ages 5 to 15, held jobs. In 1899, men made $498 a year, women $267 a year, with kids averaging around 27 cents for a 14-hour day. Early labor unions attempted to change the way that workers were being treated in their workplace. Small unions for skilled workers had existed since the 1700s. The first nationwide union was the National Labor Union. In 1869, Uriah Stevens organized the Knights of Labor. The Knights of Labor's motto was, "An injury to one is a concern of all." It was open to all workers, man or woman, and at its height in 1886, it had over 700,000 members. And Uriah Stevens is shown here. In 1886, the American Federation of Labor, with Samuel Gompers as its president, was formed, and Samuel Gompers is here in this picture. It was a craft union which consisted of workers from a specific craft. It focused on collective bargaining and used strikes as a way of getting higher wages and shorter work weeks. Industrial unions began with the man named Eugene Debs. And Eugene Debs was the first to combine all workers, skilled and unskilled, from one industry into a union. He organized the American Railway Union, which grew to over 150,000 members. And Eugene Debs is seen here in this picture. Debs eventually turned to socialism, which was an economic system in which the government controls business. And he can be seen here as a candidate for the Socialist Party in 1912. He was a candidate for president. The Industrial Workers of the World, or the IWW, headed by a man named Big Bill Haywood, never topped 100,000 members. So not all labor unions were as successful as some of the ones that we've previously discussed. Industry and the government responded forcefully to union activity, which they saw as a threat to the entire capitalist system. And strikes had a tendency in this time period to turn violent. In the Great Strike of 1877, workers on the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad went on strike for a wage cut. President Hayes ordered it ended using federal troops since it interfered with interstate commerce. In something called the Haymarket Square Affair, workers gathered to protest police brutality. As protesters were leaving, someone threw a bomb into the police. 7 police and several workers were killed. In the Homestead Strike, workers were protesting a pay cut at the steel plant in Pennsylvania. Henry Frick hired police so that he could hire scabs, which were replacement workers. 3 police and 9 workers were killed. The Pennsylvania National Guard was called in, and the plant was closed down for 5 months. The Pullman Company strike, workers went on strike over cut wages again. Pullman refused to negotiate with the strikers, so the American Railway Union boycotted Pullman trains. Pullman in turn hired strikebreakers, and it turned violent. Federal troops were sent in to stop it. People began to no longer be able to ignore conditions in the factories after something called the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire in 1911. 146 women died after the building caught fire. The doors were locked to keep them from leaving, and many jumped to their death or died inside the building. This disaster led to some changes in local rules for women and children in the workplace. Pictures from the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire can be seen here, with some of the bodies actually after the fire itself, and then a picture of inside the building after the fire had been put out. Employers fought back, though, and employers actually feared the unions as they grew more powerful. They finally, with the court's help, turned the Sherman Antitrust Act against labor itself. All they had to say was that a strike hurt the interstate trade and the government would have to intervene. Despite all of the pushback from the government, labor unions continued to grow and continued to organize to work for better working conditions. And we'll discuss more about the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire and the Pullman strike in our lessons in class.